Growing up visiting my local amusement park, what intrigued me most was seeing how all the rides worked. Wishing to operate a ride myself, I got the idea that I could probably build my own ride that I could operate. One of my first 3D prints on my personal 3D printer was a drop tower inspired by those manufactured by S&S. And that design inspired me to 3D print a functional model. So me and my roller coaster filled mind started this notebook to express all my ideas. This was my first illustration for this drop tower project. It explains the mechanism, which I created a prototype of, and the concept shown in this prototype is basically the same concept I used in the final version of the tower. I had to experiment with different types of motors. I was about to use a DC motor, but then I discovered a stepper motor which I could control. In order to control a stepper motor, I had to learn Arduino, which is in C++ language, and that is the powerhouse of the control panel. Prior to starting this project, I had zero knowledge in C++, but watching videos and scrolling through Arduino forums was really helpful in learning. Now I could add the stepper motor to my existing design, which I continue to improve on. One of the first problems I ran into was that the motor that I was using was way too weak. So I needed to find a motor with higher torque. Well, my school is about to throw out this 3D printer that didn't work, so I got permission to take it home, and I took it apart, and I got these beautiful stepper motors from it. I did some research on what kind of motors these were, and figured out how to configure it to my Arduino. These motors, being much more powerful, were perfect for the project. The most important part of this system is the control panel. It houses the Arduino as well as the other electronics. As with Arduino, I did not know a thing about any of these electronic components before I started. For example, when looking on Google how to wire this LCD screen, it took me forever because one wire was misplaced. And I was about to give up on the whole project because I literally spent a week trying to figure that out. I did take a lot of notes on electronics. For example, here's 2 pages on AND gates. I did make the most of my personal 3D printer with this project, though I did print one thing on the school's printer because it was too big. Before printing or designing anything, I had to draw it out. For example, I have this design of a push button. The thought of this design definitely altered my performance in a basketball game. And yes, I'd be thinking about designing things all day. After printing all these push button parts, I was able to assemble them and add them to the control panel. And if you're wondering, this is what my desk looked like at that stage. Throughout the process, I've been following these steps, which I updated 100 times. Special thanks to the IKEA man for inspiration on how to write a manual. The more detailed these instructions are, the more bored I was in the process. I couldn't even draw a hand until this page. Anyways, laying out the steps before was very helpful. The control panel eventually looked like this. This is after sleepless nights where I could not stop thinking about my problem. And the exterior looks nice, but the interior is a little messy, but everything works so far. Now with the panel constructed, I was able to construct the base of the tower where the motor will be held. Originally, the motor would rotate gears, which would rotate the mechanism, but I didn't have enough torque still for that, so I decided to get rid of the gears overall and just use the motor. Things were a little easier from now on with the motor. It was turning the timing belt okay, but I just had to cut the perfect length of the timing belt so it's not too slack or too loose. Putting together the mechanism was one of the easier parts, as I did have that laid out at the beginning, but I also thought the lights I added were really cool. Finishing the mechanism, I programmed each mode into the Arduino. This reveals a problem that is pretty visible in this video, and that is that the tower shakes a lot. That is caused by the motor shaking the middle support, which is connected to the tower structure, so I 3D printed this to reinforce the center support. And this left me with one more problem, and that was getting the e-stop button to function. I wanted the ride to come to a safe, immediate stop right when it's pressed, but the 3D printed one I made was not doing that job. So I purchased a real one off of Amazon, where it could cut the power to the motor. With this in place, the motor has no power, so it stops immediately. And thankfully, that was the last problem I had to endure throughout this entire project. Unfortunately, I'll have one less thing to think about when I'm bored. So now my model drop tower, Tower 9.81, has been completed. So now let's see this thing in action. this project. I learned so much from it. I learned how to program, I learned how to use different tools on electronics. I dealt with a lot of challenges during this project. It has also encouraged me to pursue a career in the engineering field. Lastly, now I have my own personal ride to operate.